Very good morning to everyone joining us from India, and very good evening, Mr. Kutrale sir. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is one of those events that we have been waiting, and we have been eagerly awaiting for quite a while. So first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time, Mr. Kutrale.
Oh, my pleasure. Definitely. Thank you for having me here.
For the kids born in 80s and 90s, like myself, Kutraleeshwaran sir name வந்து ஒரு household name. அந்த தினத்தந்தி பேப்பர் கிளிப்பிங் காமிச்சாங்க இல்லையா, 12 வயது சிறுவன் சாதனை அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. So while he is a celebrity, he's a world champion athlete, a lot of us who grew up in the same era feel that you are a part of our family, sir. You've been a household name, you've been an inspiration for all the kids and adults. You're a pride of Tamil Nadu and pride of India on the global stage, sir. This session, over the next 30 minutes, we'll have an interactive session. I'm very, very excited to ask questions to Mr. Kutrale. And after that, we'll have student Q&A. We have students joining from our schools, Santhanam, Sri Jayendra Matriculation School, Shankara Matriculation School, as well as we have students joining from other schools as well. So we'll have maybe about 20 minutes for Q&A from the students. So first and foremost, sir started swimming at the age of 7, and by the age of 12, he's a Guinness record holder for swimming 6 channels in one calendar year. While many of us were busy navigating TV channels, he was busy navigating real water channels at the age of 12. So that's amazing. So Kutrale, I'll start with probably a question that you have received many times before. How did you get interested in swimming?
So swimming interest அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து instantly happened because என் சொந்த ஊர் வந்து ஈரோடு. ஸோ நான் எல்கேஜி யூகேஜிலாம் படிக்கும் போது நாங்கள் we shifted to Chennai, so based in Chennai. So summer vacationலாம் we go to ஈரோடு to just spend the entire summer vacation with my entire extended family. எல்லாம் தாத்தா பாட்டி மாமா எல்லாமே ஈரோடுல தான் பேஸ்ட். ஸோ அங்கே வந்து கிணறுலாம் இருக்கும் ஒவ்வொரு வீட்லையும். ஸோ அப்போ வந்து அந்த கிணத்துல வந்து அங்கே போய் ஸ்விம் பண்ணி உள்ள குதிச்சு விளையாடுறது தான் உங்களுக்கு ரெக்ரியேஷன். ஸோ அப்பாவோட மாமாவோட அப்படியே டியூப்லாம் கட்டி புஷஸ் இன்டு வெல். ஸோ அப்படி வந்து ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் தான். ஸோ அந்த கிணத்துல குதிச்சு அது ஒரு டிஃப்ரெண்ட் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் ஃபன்னாக இருக்கும். ஸோ அது அப்படியே போய் அப்புறம் வந்து செகண்ட் ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் ஆனுவல் வெக்கேஷனில் வந்து மை ஃபாதர் தாட் சரி ஒரு ஏதாவது உருப்படியாக கற்றுக்கலாம் இந்த சம்மர் வெக்கேஷன். அந்த வெக்கேஷன் we couldn't go to ஈரோட் for whatever reason. I think my dad had some work. ஸோ அப்போ வந்து சென்னையில் இருக்கிறதுனால டைமை கொஞ்சம் யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ணலாம், ஏதாவது ஒரு டிசிப்ளினை தான் ஒழுங்காக கற்றுக்கலாம்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஸ்விம்மிங் கேம்ப் அனுப்பிச்சாங்க. பிகாஸ் ஐ வாஸ் எனிவே இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இன் வாட்டர். எனக்கு வாட்டர் ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும், ஐ லைக் ஸ்விம்மிங். ஸோ அப்போ தான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வந்து ஐ வென்ட் டு அ ப்ராப்பர் ஸ்விம்மிங் கேம்ப் அண்ட் லேர்ன்ட் ஹவ் டு ஸ்விம். ஸோ அப்போ வந்து தேங்க்ஸ் டு மை கோச், பிகாஸ் த கோச் தாட் மீ ஸ்விம்மிங். அவர் வந்து அப்பேரண்ட்லி நான் 7 days 4 ஸ்ட்ரோக்கும் கற்றுக்கலாம். So my coach was extremely kind of like surprised, and he called my parents and apparently told them like the kid definitely ஏதோ talent இருக்கு, நீங்க வந்து இதை கண்டினியூ பண்ணீங்கன்னா probably he can really achieve heights ன்னு அவர் சொல்லி அதை வந்து எங்க பேரண்ட்ஸ் அந்த காலத்துல they took it seriously. See, you're talking about 1980s, right? Mid 1980s. அப்பெல்லாம் வந்து சென்னையிலே 2 ஸ்விம்மிங் பூல் தான் இருந்தது. And sports and all was completely unheard of. Education was the primary thing. First படிப்பு, அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் எல்லாம் அப்படின்னு தான் ஒரு கான்செப்ட் இருக்கும். ஸோ அந்த காலத்துலேயே மை பேரண்ட்ஸ் டுக் த கோச்சஸ் வேர்ட்ஸ் வெரி சீரியஸ்லி. சரி, அவர் இவ்வளோ சொல்கிறான்ட்டு தே ஸ்டார்டட் சென்டிங் மீ டு ப்ராப்பர் கோச்சிங். அதுக்கப்புறம் ஸ்டெப் பை ஸ்டெப்பாக வந்தது தான் வந்து ஸ்விம்மிங் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் லைக் கேம் இன். ஸோ டு ஆன்சர் யுவர் கொஸ்டின், கைண்ட் ஆஃப் இன்சிடென்டல் அண்ட் ஆல் தேங்க்ஸ் டு மை பேரண்ட்ஸ் அட் தட் பர்டிகுலர் பாயிண்ட் டு டேக் த கோச்சஸ் அட்வைஸ் வெரி சீரியஸ்லி அண்ட் புட் மீ இன் டு ப்ராப்பர் சேனல். ஸோ தட்ஸ் மை ஸ்விம்மிங் ஸ்டோரி.
Very nice. Thank you, Kutrale. So your name is a very, very interesting coincidence. You've been aptly named Kutraleeshwaran for a reason, I'm sure. So the message I would like to give to students is that you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So that is the key takeaway from Kutrale's life and journey. So 6 channels in just one calendar year. So swimming in a well to swimming in a pool to a river to an ocean, right? It must have been a sea change, pun intended, of course. So it's just a whole different ball game when you think about swimming across all of these different channels. That Kutraleeshwaran sir has swum is 81 kilometers in a river. The longest in terms of time, pathina English Channel, it took 11.5 hours, 37 kilometers in the ocean. Park Strait pathina 32 kilometers in 16 hours. So imagine swimming for 11 to 16 hours straight without any break at all. Sir, நானும் இதை பற்றி நேற்றுக்கு பேசிட்டு இருந்தோம். பக்கத்தில் ஒரு போட் வருவாங்க சார் ஸ்விம் பண்ணுறப்ப. he is not even allowed to touch the boat. அப்ப எந்த அளவுக்கு perseverance and grit அதுல இருக்கும் நீங்க பாருங்க. So Kutraleeshwaran sir, if you can just share your takeaways from those swimming experiences. உங்களோட physical strength and mental strength is of huge inspiration for all the students. So if you can kindly share a few experiences from swimming those channels, sir.
Sure, definitely, Chandra, thanks. See, experiences அப்படின்ட்டு பார்த்தோம்னா வந்து each strait was its own kind of challenge. இப்போ இங்கிலீஷ் சேனல் எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா வந்து one of the major challenges there was the temperature of the water. So England and France, the temperature is like completely super cold compared to Indian temperatures. So அதுக்கு to get used to it took me a long time. So என்ன பண்ணேன்னா வந்து இங்கிலீஷ் சேனலுக்கு வந்து I went at least like month and a half before my schedule swim. And every day வந்து ஒரு 5 minutes I incremented my time in the water. First day வந்து நான் 5 minutes மேல தண்ணிக்குள்ள இருக்க முடியல because it was so cold. வெளில வந்துட்டு ஒரு half an hour shiver பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன். So next day வந்து it became like 5 minutes became 10 minutes, அப்புறம் 15 minutes. So gradually it kind of increased. அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் I could kind of get the feel of the cold water. So that was one of the biggest challenges in English channel. So pretty much again coming back to what I take away from that இப்போ channel வந்து what I take away na, so one of the things is நீங்க மிஸ்டர் சந்திரா சொன்ன மாதிரி தான். ஸோ எனிதிங் we have to start first. Start பண்ணிட்டு we have to stick on to it. So overnight you cannot become like a superhero in anything, but anybody can become a superhero with sustained practice and sustained perseverance. No field is like outside your kind of realm. So other than I'll say it's the biggest takeaway for especially for students. இப்போ வந்து நிறைய பேர் நமக்குலாம் ரோல் மாடல் இருப்பாங்க, பார்ப்போம், ஃபென்டாஸ்டிக், அவர் மாதிரி வரணும் இவர் மாதிரி வரணும்னு நினைப்போம். But யார் நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னாலும் very highly successful people, they would have had a long period of training or hard work or sweat going behind it. So அது வந்து we'll never see. We'll only see the success of the people. So one key thing for us to say is like anything is achievable. யார் வேணாலும் எது வேணாலும் சாதிக்க முடியும்னு I strongly believe. What differentiates the people who actually do whatever they do and people who kind of like go into various other things is the perseverance part of it. So ஒரே ஆக்டிவிட்டியை நம்ம வந்து கன்சிஸ்டண்டா பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தா நோ அஃப்கோர்ஸ் வில் இம்ப்ரூவ் இன் எனிதிங். இப்போ நீங்க ஜிம்மே போறீங்கன்னு வைங்க, ஜிம் போயிட்டு ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டே 6 pack வரணும்னா இட்ஸ் இம்பாசிபிள். ஆனா அதுக்கு வந்து யூ ஷுட் ஹேவ் த டிசிப்ளின் டு கைண்ட் ஆஃப் லைக் கீப் ட்ரைனிங் ஃபார் இட் அண்ட் eventually you will succeed. The gym is just an example, but anything in life. So that will be one of my key takeaways from all of these channels. For example, English channel and the examples. So now Park Straits had a different challenge to it. Now Park Straits on the tides, Park Straits is between India and Sri Lanka. ஸோ அங்கே டைட்ஸ் ரொம்ப உங்களுக்கு ஸ்ட்ராங்காக இருக்கும், கரண்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் டைட்ஸ். ஸோ நீங்கள் வந்து ஸ்விம்மிங் பூலில் சும்புற மாதிரி யூ கேனாட் கோ இன் ஒன் லைன். நீங்கள் ஒரு இடத்துல ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணுவீங்க, பட் டைட்ஸ் வில் டேக் யூ டிஃப்ரெண்ட் டைரக்ஷன். அப்படியே யூ ஹேவ் டு கம் பேக் அண்ட் distance 32 kilometers இருந்தா கூட மேபி the actual distance you actually swam, total distance might be even like 50 or 60 kilometers. Example சொன்னா Park Straits வந்து நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி 32 kilometers தான், but then it took me 16 hours to complete it. Whereas English channel was 37 kilometers, but it just took me 11 and a half hours. So it's a completely different challenge. So every strait is like it brought its own kind of complexities and challenge to it. But on a holistic level, key takeaway வந்து typically swimming is the underlying fundamental aspect, and you practice towards that sport. So you practice to such a level that any challenge becomes kind of like surpassable or surmountable, in other words. So that will be my key kind of takeaway from it.
I'm just reminded of Swami Vivekananda's quote, which is arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. So that is the key takeaway for all the students from Kutral's perseverance in swimming all of these channels and making these accomplishments. Sir, can you highlight in the tides pati soninga? So there's a lot of science and math and logic and planning behind all of these. So can you talk about those aspects, please?
Definitely. இப்போ நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா I'll come back to the Park Straits எக்ஸாம்பிளே வரலாமே. ஸோ Park Straits நான் வந்து ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணது வந்து நைட் ஒரு 12:30 மணிக்கு. அந்த ஏன் ரீசன்னா வந்து they'll calculate எந்த டைம்ல டைட் எந்த டைரக்ஷன்ல இருக்கும், எப்போ ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணா be much easier for the swimmer to cross across the Park Straits. அதெல்லாம் they'll calculate. Not just in Park Straits, English channel also on the tide currentsலாம் they'll kind of like previous day you'll get the forecast and you'll kind of understand tides எப்படி move, the underwater currents எப்படி இருக்கும், ஸோ எந்த டைம் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணா பெட்டரா இருக்கும், அதெல்லாம் லாட் ஆஃப் திங்ஸ் கோ ஆன் இன் த பேக்ரவுண்ட். ஸோ பட் யூ கேன் நெவர் accurately predict the tide movements or the underwater currents. Sometimes வந்து you think you start with a particular plan, but நடுவில் வந்து tides completely change. You just have to swim against it or with it or whatever it is. So you have to be able to adapt as when things unfold. So the logic, math, or the kind of aspect primarily to understand the sea forecast. நம்ம வெதர் forecast sea forecast எங்க எந்த பக்கம் எவ்வளவு டைட் இருக்கும், at what time, எங்க ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணா கரெக்டா இருக்கும், எந்த டைம் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணா கரெக்டா இருக்கும். ஸோ அதெல்லாம் வந்து lot of things which go behind. So that is pretty much what happens in that aspect. But at the same time, sometimes உங்களுக்கு டெக்னாலஜி கூட ஃபெயில் ஆகலாம். இப்போ right now we are facing technology issues. So Parks Raids actually வந்து you wouldn't believe I had it was organized by the Tamil Nadu government. அப்போ so we had the support of the Indian Navy and the Sri Lankan Navy. So Indiaல இருந்தும் Navy ships வந்தது, Sri Lankaல இருந்தும் Navy ships வந்தது, and it was completely covered in terms of protection and everything. அப்போ தெரியல India, Sri Lanka, there were a lot of kind of like other issues, political issues going on. So both the governments were completely into it. அப்படி இருந்துமே கூட வந்து shipல the radar failed. So நான் கம்ப்ளீட்டா I was swimming in the wrong direction for 4 or 5 hours. ஸோ அது எப்படி ரெக்டிஃபை ஆச்சுன்னா, பக்கத்துல அந்த கட்டுமரான்ல வந்த ஃபிஷர்மேன் அவர் வந்து ஸ்டார் பொசிஷன் பார்த்து நம்ம போற டைரக்ஷன் தப்புன்னு சொல்லி அவரு மாத்தி வந்தது. ஸோ த ரெடார் ஃபெயில்ட், வெரஸ் த நம்ம பாரம்பரியமா வர அந்த ஸ்டார் டைரக்ஷன் வச்சுட்டு we kind of like rectify the direction and we came. That was another reason why it took me 16 hours. And in the first 3-4 hours I was going completely in the wrong direction. So many things, surprising things happen, but as a sports person or as anything in life, you have to be ready for any challenges that are thrown at you. So that was one aspect that happened in Park Raids.
Amazing, Kutral. So when we were talking yesterday, in some of these experiences, boatla vandu unga father, he will also be traveling with you. I'm sure at such a young age, நீங்க வந்து இவ்வளவு அச்சீவ் பண்ணீங்கன்னா, role of your family and friends would have been huge. So can you talk about that, please?
Oh, absolutely. See, one thing நான் வந்து ஹாப்பியா என்ன சொல்லுவேன்னா, without my family I'm nothing, right? I'll tell you why. ஏன்னா நீங்க ஃபர்ஸ்ட் நான் சொன்ன மாதிரி 7 வயசுல ஸ்விம்மிங் கத்துக்கிட்டேன் இல்லையா? ஸோ அப்பவே வந்து my family, my dad especially did not take the coach's advice seriously. சரி, ஓகே, ஒரு கோச் சொல்றாரு, வேற ஏதாவது போலாம் அப்படின்னு பண்ணிட்டா வந்து I wouldn't have even gotten into swimming in such a serious capacity. So அதுக்கே first, they are kind of என்ன சொல்றது, ஒரு dedication to actually take that seriously and take me into the sport. Second வந்து, as I kept going to competitions, as I kept improving, my dad completely gave up his career. So அவர் வந்து he wasn't practicing advocate in Madras High Court. So at one point வந்து I needed someone to take me to swimming both in the morning and in the evening and take me to all the competitions across the world and across India. So he completely gave up his career so he could be with me all the time. Amma வந்து டோட்டலா வந்து she was taking care of my diet and food and everything else. என்னோட அண்ணா வந்து he was super kind of supportive. Even he had to skip college for a year back in 94 because he could be with me for all the Guinness record aspect. So he lost a year in college as well. So நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா my whole family was my ecosystem. So நான் என்னோட வேலை தான், it was the most simple. போய் swim பண்ணிட்டு வந்துடணும். மற்றது எல்லாமே organizing and everything else was all with my family. So I would definitely say my family was a huge support. So outside of the family, you asked about friends and other ecosystem. My school, I went to DAV boys school, Gopalapan, Chennai. So அவங்க வந்து they are known for emphasizing on education. சரிங்களா? DAV is one of the schools which always emphasizes education. That was always known for it. So in our case, for the very first time, they gave a lot of emphasis on sports and they encouraged me to know level. 7th standard நான் ஸ்கூலே போல. In fact, 7th standard annual exam எழுதல, so they promoted me to 8th standard. And 8th நான் நிறைய எக்ஸாம்லாம் எழுதல. 9th 10th I had so much permission. The school was very flexible. They told me pretty much you take care of your swimming, and they were completely behind me. ஏன்னா உங்களுக்கு full ecosystem work ஆனும். Family work ஆகி ஸ்கூல் ஒர்க் ஆகலனா you cannot like manage. So ரெண்டுமே வந்து it was like on spot. They were helping me with my swimming endeavors. And school வந்து எனக்கு 2nd standardல இருந்து it was completely free education also. So they supported in all ways possible. So that was one very, very kind of like supporting ecosystem. மற்றபடி even outside, the government kind of stepped in. Upon the first government which helped me was Dr. Jayalalitha. She was the chief minister. I met her back in 1994. So அவங்க வந்து at that particular, upon I hadn't done parks, I hadn't done anything. I was unknown. I was just a swimmer who kind of did something within India and so on and so forth. And அவங்க வந்து she took kind of like, she trusted my abilities and everything else, and the government adopted me. They were the ones who actually organized Parks Raids. and they were the ones who sponsored or gave me sponsorship for English channel. And the Tamil Nadu government was the government which sponsored my entire 1994 for my Guinness record pursuits. So even the government support kind of like came in. So நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா it was a complete ecosystem. Government ஆகட்டும், family ஆகட்டும், school ஆகட்டும். So as I said, my only job was to practice well and go swim. So mine was the easiest job. And so even today, I'm like, I would definitely say that. And I thank each and every one of them. And even the Yarmel, even on Orthurana Kuda, I wouldn't have been what I am today. So I would definitely want to emphasize that. Yeah.
Thank you, Kutralan. You're being so humble and saying that you had the simplest job. So your humility is certainly coming across. So we have all seen pictures of you with various celebrities and very inspiring personalities, right? நீங்க மீட் பண்ணதுலயே உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது ரொம்ப இன்ஸ்பைரிங்கான பர்சனாலிட்டி இல்ல ரொம்ப மெமரபிளான இன்சிடென்ட், இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கான இன்சிடென்ட் அந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது இருந்தா ஷேர் பண்ணிக்கோங்களேன் for the benefit of the students, please.
Right, sure. See, எனக்கு வந்து one person who I always been enamored to, I always looked up to, சின்ன வயசுலயே வந்து டாக்டர் அப்துல் கலாம். ஸோ அவர் வந்து அவருக்கு வந்து அந்த பேட்ரியாட்டிசம் அண்ட் ஹிஸ் ஹம்பிள் பிகினிங்ஸ், அவர் கடைசி வரைக்கும் நீங்க என்னெல்லாம் ஹம்பிளுங்கிறீங்க, அவரை கம்பேர் பண்ணும்போது அதுதான் நத்திங். ஈவன் when he was a president, he used just one room in the entire Rashtrapati Bhavan, and it's a very common thing. He just had one suitcase in which he lived out of. So அவர் வந்து I always used to look up to. So his book of Wings of Fire is very kind of like motivating, especially for Indian youngsters, and he wanted to make India a superpower, right? He had that vision. So now meet panala, I would say he was very, very kind of like an impactful meeting for me. And from the first time I met him, I had the fortune of sharing the dais with him. Both of us were chief guests for one of the events, and he spoke to me very, very well, and he took very keen interest in me because I was a youngster. So he was always attracted towards youngsters, and his belief was youngsters are tomorrow's pillars for India. So on the interaction, I can never forget because he was very motivating on the pace and on the time for half an hour which we spent. And I felt so kind of grateful because I was sharing the dais with him as a co-chief guest. So I was like, this was even before he became the president, but he was always a role model. I think that Dr. Abdul Kalam was like a role model for me, and his humility and what he's achieved in life and his vision which he had. So it was a very, very memorable kind of event for me. I remember, I still even remember I was wearing a white t-shirt, a college and a school, he was wearing a blue shirt, and it was very, very heartwarming. Yeah.
Very nice, Kutral. Yes, Dr. Abdul Kalam sir is a huge inspiration for all of us. So thank you for sharing that. So நீங்க schooling முடிச்சீங்க, அதுக்கப்புறமா engineering at Anna University, அதுக்கப்புறமா MS in the US, அதுக்கப்புறம் you joined Intel, which is the world's largest semiconductor chip manufacturer. So for the benefit of the students, இன்னைக்கு நம்ம யூஸ் பண்ற electronic devices, computers, PCs, laptops, cell phones, இது எல்லாத்துலயுமே இந்த semiconductor chips play a very critical role, and Intel is the world leader in that. So on the journey, so the switch from being a world champion athlete to pursuing academics and engineering, adapati solunga, please.
Absolutely. So see, one thing is which will help us in complete life, which I strongly believe in, is to always be practical at every time. You can have your different aspirations, you can have your ambition and go towards it, but you should always also look at what is happening around you and be practical and take realistic decisions at that particular point. So swimming, I was doing and everything was coming up well. But one biggest handicap at that particular point was I wasn't getting sponsorships to participate in events or continue my swimming career. And over international competition, it will cost several lakhs together, right? And at that point, I'm talking about like mid 1990s to late 1990s. Several lakhs was a huge amount of money, and we come from a very humble background as well. So at one point, I had to make a decision. So I didn't want to put my parents under more stress, because every competition we go, we have to spend from our own pocket, and several lakhs was not simply affordable, right? And at that point, I had to kind of make a decision of what do I do with my future. Of course, I could have kept swimming, I could have gone to many more competitions and done, but your future kind of becomes the question mark. And of course, India, education is extremely important. Education is kind of your fundamental kind of crutch for your life. So I took a decision, say swimming, let's switch to education. and education பண்ணிட்டு. So that was my rationale for switching. And again, I have no regrets because like I was very happy with where I was in my swimming career at that particular point. And at the decision, it felt very right. That was the right decision to make. Say 12th varaikkum I completely swam, but now once I start forcing education, so I can kind of like come up in my career in a completely different field as well. So that was a switch which happened. And engineering, see, இப்போ the school students in fact are super lucky because there are so many kind of avenues which students can really explore. அந்த காலத்துல வந்து 3 இருந்தது. ஒன்னா இன்ஜினியர் ஆகணும், இல்லை டாக்டர் ஆகணும், இல்லை லாயர் ஆகணும், இல்லை அந்த மாதிரி ரொம்ப வெரி ஒரு க்ளோஸ் நெட் ஒரு இதாக தான் இருந்தது. ஸோ அட் தட் பர்டிகுலர் பாயிண்ட் அப்படியே வந்து இன்ஜினியரிங் பிகேம் அ நேச்சுரல் எக்ஸ்டென்ஷன் லுக்கிங் அட் எஜுகேஷன். அது அப்படியே ஐ மேட் அ ஸ்விட்ச் அண்ட் நெவர் லுக் பேக்.
யூஎஸ்ல போய் எம்எஸ் பண்ணீங்க, பண்ணிட்டு தென் யூ ஜாயின்ட் இன்டெல். உங்களோட டைம் அட் இன்டெல் அதை பத்தி சொல்லுங்க குட்ரால் ப்ளீஸ்.
Absolutely. So Intel has always been my dream company. சரிங்களா, நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி வந்து it's the preeminent leader when it comes to microprocessors, anything to do with chip design and so on and so forth. So Intel was always my go-to kind of a company. This one, the interest actually started in my undergrad. I did my electrical engineering in College of Engineering, India. So upon that, I really liked one subject which was called digital electronics. So I was really enamored into that particular digital electronic field. So adana masters I specialized. So of course, the digital electronics the epitome of digital electronics was Intel Corporation at that particular point. Even now, they're one of the world leaders. So I always had my sights for that. So I completed my master's in microelectronics and specialization. Microelectronics is nothing but the chip design. Like processor goes in your cell phone, it goes in your laptop, it goes wherever, right? So designing that processor, that is nothing but microelectronics. And that's what Intel kind of like specializes in. So adala I did my master's in specialization. I was fortunate enough to get into Intel to the interview and everything else. And Intel was phenomenal, and that has always been my dream company for a long time. Although in California, I was working with Intel, the Silicon kind of Valley, all the tech companies are congregated there, and that was my first job from education. And that was my first ever corporate experience also. So it was very humbling, scary, and very made me feel very happy because okay, number 100 chip it's going to become the next leading chip in the market. You feel really good about yourself. Of course, you're one amongst the thousands of engineers working on it, but still you have your contribution there. So you get to see the technology, what is going to come 3 years from now. You get to work on it today. You work on this cutting edge technology which nobody else knows, nobody else sees for the next 3 years. So when you know that you're working on the most bleeding edge technology, it feels like really good and phenomenal experience. So I was there with them for like 3.5 years, but fantastic experience. I mean, the colleagues I worked with, super smart people, and Intel Solomon, and the things I learned being an engineer, and my first corporate experience to get a salary was like really good. Okay, it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
So after a successful stint at Intel, you decided to pursue a full-time MBA from the MIT Sloan School of Management. So tell us about that decision and what kind of drove that decision, because you had a really successful career, both as an athlete and then as an engineer, and working for Intel would be a dream for any engineer. So, and then you still left it and decided to pursue a full-time MBA. So tell us more about that, Kutraleeswaran, please.
Yeah, sure. So, like one thing which I always do is like every few years, I try to introspect. Is it really giving me happiness? Is it where I want to be? Where will I be? So I keep thinking a lot. So at one particular point, if I feel that, okay, I want to do something else, I go and I explore that. Intel, as you said, fantastic experience. I really liked it. But when I was looking at people who have been there for 10 plus years, in their career and everything else, that didn't very much appeal to me. And I wanted to go out and be in the business world of things. As an engineer, you kind of like sit in your cubicle, you kind of do your coding, you kind of like design processors, and if you love it, fantastic. But I didn't see myself doing that for the rest of my career. So I was looking at avenues where I can go and understand businesses from a different perspective and kind of like maybe even start a business and so on and so forth. I want to go and meet people and kind of like win business. I started getting my interest. So I really paid a lot of attention to my interest. Interest I was thinking, okay, now I'm doing this, but I feel I'll be interested somewhere else, or I'm being drawn to a different field. So that's when like I started researching what are the possibilities. So I kind of fixed up a destination. To or idea. So what will take me to the destination? That's when I kind of figured MBA will be a good segue for me to go there and then like switch. So again, see, one thing which I would say is like, see, this is what I believe in, right? So life is very short if you think about it. And with this life, interest you should just pursue the interest. If you feel you'll be happy, you'll feel like something else is going to give you a much better kind of a proposition, go with it. Anything, sometimes we think, okay, namakku oru passion irukku, life full adhe dhaan passion no interest no, it's fine. நம்ம எல்லாமே human beings, we all evolve. So let's say today I like cricket a lot. Nalike I may start liking football more. Day after I may start liking tennis more. Or maybe like our experiences, our exposure kind of like gives us more kind of affinity towards certain things. I would say that practical and go explore it if it really kind of like kind of attracts you in a way. So that's what I kind of like believe in. And of course, this one shouldn't be very drastic. Seri இன்னைக்கு வந்து இன்டர்ஸ் சேர்ந்தா நாளைக்கே quit பண்ணிட்டு போனோம், that will not work. எங்க போனாலும் spend some time there, learn as much as you can and wherever you are, and then decide if at all you want to go, and take a realistic kind of a senses of whether it will work. And sometimes life we have to take risks also. Risk it won't be fun enough. So I strongly believe in that. So it won't be given to us in a platter. We have to go towards that. So that's always been the way I keep thinking about. So back to your question. So until when I was thinking, okay, after 3.5 years, I was like, okay, now I don't feel that I'll be a happy engineer for the rest of my life. I want to do something in the business world. So that prompted my change into searching for an MBA program, and MIT happened, and that's how I made a transition.
Amazing. So after MIT, you switched to corporate finance and investment banking. Right. So for the benefit of the students, your experiences in investment banking and corporate finance, and what does that entail for the benefit of the students? Your city experiences, venture capital work. Can you just share some key takeaways from that, Kutral, please?
Absolutely. So MBA, as I told you, there was no specialization. You can take whatever courses you want. So it's pretty much like you can think of it as a junction box. Once you're done with the junction box, you can go wherever you want. You can get a consulting, you can get a banking, you can get anything. So since I was an engineer, and pretty much I used to work a lot with numbers. Naturally, like most of our Indians, we are all like blessed with very good quantitative abilities. With numbers, we are pretty good decently. So as an engineer, anyway, you work with numbers. Finance is, again, you work with numbers, but you have different applications for the same kind of fundamental logic. So that was a natural affinity for me towards the world of finance. At that particular point, engineer, I didn't know anything about business. When I say business, I'm talking about the finance part of it, right? I didn't know what a balance sheet profit and loss statement. Typically, I don't know anything about finance. So MBA a basic course, I felt so more enlightened. I had a feeling when I took the accounting course. So you start looking at companies in a completely different way. For a company, or financial statements, if you understand, you can understand what's going on in the company. You can learn so much about the company. For me, it felt as though I got a new tool. So I was very excited, and of course, that's where I want to kind of like progress my career in. And naturally, finance kind of like came in banking or investment banking with the city. So of course, and again, for the benefit of students and everything else, so corporate finance or investment banking, it's very simple. So we have bank accounts in a retail bank, let's say Citibank or State Bank of India. We are all retail customers. We have a checking account, we have our savings account, FD, and the Namaklam products are for retail people. So do the same thing for multi-billion-dollar companies. Even they need to manage their finances. So they'll have their own banks. So the products will be much more complex than the retail customer or corporation. Finances managed will be more complex. That's on the operational side. On the advisory side, we have to let them know. We have to give them advisory. Capital whatever you can pull it in a certain way. You give them advice of how to manage their capital. So a corporation, they might want to go acquire a different company. They might want to kind of like do something with their stocks, which is in the market, other valuation increase or decrease for no. Or they might want to recapitalize. What I mean recapitalize, now they might want some debt from the market. So on the high level aspects, now you advise. So that is pretty much a corporate finance. If a company deploy how much debt should they get from the market, or whether they need to go to the capital markets, or if they want to acquire a company, give them advisory on which company to acquire, what's the valuation they should be thinking about. So that is pretty much from a very high level point of view, corporate finance and investment banking. And that I found it extremely exciting because you work with like all the popular companies in the world. For example, Dell and Machina. Dell wants to acquire a company, they come to you. You kind of like work with the Dell's senior management, and then you kind of like tell them, okay, these are your potential targets. You can acquire them for this valuation and so on and so forth. It's very exciting work, but extremely kind of busy work. When I say busy, especially when you're a junior. So usually when you get into this after your master's, after MBA, you get in as an associate or an analyst kind of position, which is kind of very, very low on the food chain and the hierarchy. So you easily have to work like 80 to 100 hours a week. Weekends like a call, you'll be on the call. So as investment bankers, typically when you work like crazy, and you pretty much have zero work-life balance, but you learn tons. You learn so much. It builds up a very, very strong foundation for you to do anything else in your career. Because the kind of deals you work in, the high pressure deals, the kind of clients you kind of go with, it gives you, it kind of like shapes you and readies you for any career you want to get into. So that is pretty much corporate finance and investment banking. I was fortunate enough to have an experience of that with Citibank for, I think, 5+ years. And that was the experience which took me to different countries around the world, and a fantastic experience there. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, Kutral. As much as I would love to continue this interaction, it's time to switch gears and hand it over to the students.
I wouldn't say a word or a mantra. So usually what I do, like when I swim, because when you swim in the sea and everything else, it's going to be super dark when you even open your eyes to look into the depths, right? So what I do is I always close my eyes when my face goes into the water. And I only open my eyes when I kind of like take my breath and when I look at the boat. So Andamadi, I always used to practice. And again, word or mantra order, I keep like, your mind is kind of idle, and you have to swim for like 11 hours, 12 hours. And it just won't be silent. Sometimes I just keep humming some songs in my mind. I'll just keep reminding myself of some funny incidents in school. I just keep imagining various things to keep myself entertained. So Andamadi, it's a very interesting phase, but no specific word or no specific mantra. It's completely random. So right from humming songs to randomly thinking some funny things and imagining stuff. So that's how it used to go. Yeah. I believe in, forget hard work, forget smart work. I seriously believe in self-discipline. Okay, so what do I mean by self-discipline? Your mind is your biggest kind of a coach and motivator, right? So if you set your mind to something, you should make sure you go towards it. What I mean by that is very simple. Let's say you decide to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. That is something you tell yourself. If you have the self-discipline to listen to yourself and wake up at 5 a.m. every day, that's a beautiful thing. It's just an example, right? Let's say you tell yourself, hey, I need to study for 2 hours every day. Set yourself these small goals and have the self-discipline to go towards the goals and make those goals a reality. It can be as small as like anything, right? I mean, I'll eat pizza only once a week, not every day of the week, or I'll eat junk food once a week. That's okay. Set yourself these small things and have the self-discipline to keep up to what you tell yourself. So starting from the very basic thing, like waking up for a certain time or studying for a certain time or playing something or doing anything, that will kind of help you in any kind of like step. So that automatically brings in both the smart work and the hard work. If let's say in your school, you're all school students, and for whatever reason, let's say math is something which you're not very fond of, right? Not many kids are like fond of math, if you think about it. But you have to, unfortunately, number school system, you have to write a maths exam to pass, and you have to get good grades in your 10th or 12th to kind of get a good college and so on. So this is a necessary kind of evil. I mean, I'm not saying math is evil. I'm just saying, I'm giving an example. But you can come with a self-discipline saying, whatever happens, I'm going to devote at least half an hour a day in math, and I'll solve at least 10 problems a day. That's okay. But have the self-discipline to do that. Adu pannita, you'll feel so good about yourself. The minute you kind of like keep up to your own promise, they don't have to motivate you or anything for any kind of a goal. So if you do that, that will work wonders. So I hope that kind of like answered your question, even though it's not a direct of smart versus hard work. Self-discipline, I would say, is preeminent kind of a requirement for anything. So that will automatically take your efforts into the right channel. At that point, I was very young when I got the Guinness record or anything. I didn't feel anything. My only goal was, see, advantage na, I grew up in a fantastic neighborhood. So we had like almost 20 kids in the same street. We went to the same school, and LKG to 12th வரைக்கும் எல்லா கிட்ஸும் இருப்பாங்க. So my only aim at that particular point, and we used to spend all the time on the road. ரோட்ல தான் கிரிக்கெட் விளையாடுவாங்க, தான் ரன்னிங் அண்ட் கேச்சிங். ஒருத்தர் வீட்டில் ஒருத்தர் இருக்கவே மாட்டோம். அவங்கவுங்க வெவ்வேறு வீட்டில் எங்கேயாவது இருப்பாங்க. யாராவது லஞ்சுக்கு வேணா the parents should come down to the road and yell out the name. அப்பதான் எந்த குழந்தை எந்த வீட்டில் இருக்குன்னு அவங்களுக்கே தெரியும். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி I had a childhood. So my only aim was to spend as much as time possible on the road. So I didn't even feel like, I achieved something or whatever it is. I lived a very fantastic fairy tale kind of a childhood. So Guinness record, okay, fine. Take what's next. All of that. I didn't really dwell into it, or I didn't feel, oh, it's a super big thing. In fact, I have never even felt like super happy about all these things. For me, everything's saying number one, these are all like side effects which come in. Your main thing was swimming, you just swim and these things kind of happen. And the same thing with Arjuna Award. Arjuna Award, I actually was nervous. And at that age, I'm standing in front of the President of India. My only thing was like, I have to stand properly. I don't know how to shake my hands. So many things go in your mind that you lose the whole charm of getting the award. Right? So, it's very, very overwhelming. And the national anthem, you are with all the other kind of like super high achievers in life, and you're one of the youngest people. So என்னோட ஃபோக்கஸ்லாம் எப்படி போறோம், எப்படி அவார்ட் வாங்குறோம், அவார்டை கீழே போட்டக்கூடாது அவர் கொடுக்கும்போது. அதான் நிறைய kind of like keeps going in mind. So அந்த மூமெண்ட் there was no feeling at all. After that, yeah, okay, I got on job, fine. Again, next go and play cricket with my friends. அவ்வளோதான். எப்போ வீட்டுக்கு போவோம் அந்த மாதிரி thought process தான். So in a way, my age was a blessing because none of this got into my head, or I didn't really feel for any of these things. So that was that. No, excellent question. The thing is, I didn't know. See, எனக்கு யாருமே சொல்ல. எல்லாருமே போட்ல இன்னும் 5 hours தான், 5 hours தான். They were all motivating me, and they were just like making me swim. Nobody told me that I was wayward. I came to know only after I finished, only after I crossed it. But your point, அப்ப எனக்கு சொல்லியிருந்தாங்கன்னா maybe I would have felt like what the hell. ஏன்னா உங்களுக்கு ஒரு 3-4 hours wasted effort ஆயிரும். So maybe that would have been like completely kind of demotivating me, or demotivating at that particular point. So thankfully, they didn't let me know as when I was swimming. So now வந்துட்டே இருக்குன்னு போயிட்டே இருந்தாலும். So அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் I came to know the entire kind of saga of this thing happened. That a fisherman actually like saw the stars, and then he turned the direction, and then he kind of, and நீங்க swim பண்ணும்போது you won't even know whether the direction changes, because it's not like நம்ம கார் ஓட்டுற மாதிரி போய் U-turn எடுத்து வர மாதிரி இல்லை. Gradually you'll go. So you as a swimmer, you're very, very small in the big ocean. நீங்க போட்டை ஃபாலோ பண்ணிட்டு போயிட்டே இருப்பீங்க. ஸோ நீங்க நேரா போறீங்களா சைட்ல போறீங்களா உங்களுக்கு ஒரு ரியலைசேஷனே இருக்காது. So that's how it kind of like happened in past trips. Yeah. One thing swim பண்ணப்போது, one thing which coming back to even the very first question that was posted of my word or mantra. So one thing which I always motivate myself is like every stroke I take is taking me one stroke closer to my destination. So that was always going on my mind. So every time, so one stroke, so that is getting me that much closer. So another thing always kept me going in my swimming kind of an aspect. Now taking swimming away, of course, life longer, there will be multiple instances. All of us would have experienced. We'll all be super frustrated with something, or totally we'll be giving up on certain things, or we'll feel kind of like totally pressed or whatever. So at those particular points, one thing which I actually use to motivate myself or kind of like look ahead with hope is like, see, of course, many of them will tell, always look ahead, look up to someone, and follow someone, have an inspiration. For me, I would also strongly suggest this to students. I would say look back or look down. What I mean by looking down is like when you start appreciating the level at which you are in your life, you'll see so many other people who are not even at your level. So அவங்கள பார்த்து you'll feel more grateful that for where you are. உங்களுக்கு ஒரு பெரிய ப்ராப்ளம் இருக்கலாம் லைஃப்ல, எனிதிங், எக்ஸாம், maybe you might have failed or you might not have studied or various problems across aspects, career problem இருக்கலாம். In those times, when you think about people who are not even at your level, who are struggling to be where you are, you automatically you start feeling grateful for where you are and your problem kind of vanishes. Or you feel like, okay, நம்ம சமாளிச்சலாம், நம்ம பண்ணிடலாம்ட்டு ஒரு motivation automatically வரும். So I always do that. So that also makes me feel grateful for where I am. But anybody can think about this. உங்களுக்கு பெரிய ப்ராப்ளம்னா சரி, நம்ம இங்க இருக்கோம், we lose sight of where we are. Because we always look up, we always look ahead, we don't know where we are, so we stop appreciating ourselves. So I'm not saying look down upon people. Look at people who are still waiting to be where you are and be grateful for where you are and keep going. And that will also help you to motivate you to help people behind you also. So that's a completely different joy, the completely different aspect of joy of giving and so on and so forth. That will automatically come.
Sir, I'm going through the list of questions. One interesting question: are you swimming nowadays?
I mean, swimming nowadays. Tannila thalli otta, I'm sure I won't drown. I'm confident, but not really. It's not. It's been a while since I went to the COVID க்கு அப்புறம் கேட்கவே வேண்டாம். Swimming pools are closed. But even before that, I used to swim like maybe once in few months or whatever. And I'm confident that I remember how to swim, but I'm not swimming much these days. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think we are almost at an hour. So I'll just share my thoughts real quick and I'll hand it over to Kanimuri ma'am and the team. So first and foremost, in the session, நாங்க swimming against the tide அப்படின்னு பேர் வச்சோம் குட்ராலீஸ்வரன் சார். So you are an example of doing that literally and figuratively, right? Literally in the ocean and figuratively all through the life. Swimming against the tide அப்படிங்கிறது to not, for the benefit of the students, to not follow what everyone else is doing, to have your own journey, to have your own path, to be unique. And that's what Kutraleeswaran sir has demonstrated throughout his life, throughout his career. And then the takeaways for me from this session, which I'm sure a lot of the audience members would agree with, is first and foremost, every child, everybody is a genius. Right? We have to discover our genius and pursue it. And of course, the role of family and coaches and all of that plays a very, very pivotal role. Rendavathu, have a dream, right? Abdul Kalam sir, Walt Disney, they've all spoken about dreaming. Like Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. But Kutraleeswaran sir சொல்றது, have a dream, but also be practical about it, right? That's the second point. Third point is balancing academics and sports and all these other extracurricular activities. எவ்வளவு ஸ்ட்ராங்கா ஒரு அகாடமிக்ல இருந்திருந்தா இந்த அளவுக்கு அண்ணா யூனிவர்சிட்டி இன்ஜினியரிங், MS in the USA, and then MIT MBA, இது எல்லாமே பண்ணிட்டு இப்போ ஹைலி அனலிட்டிக்கல் ஃபீல்ட், இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் பேங்கிங், வெஞ்சர் கேபிட்டல் அப்படிங்கிறது இட்ஸ் எக்ஸ்ட்ரீம்லி அனலிட்டிக்கல். அப்போ எந்த அளவுக்கு அவரோட அகாடமிக் ஃபவுண்டேஷன் ஸ்ட்ராங்கா இருந்திருந்தா இந்த மாதிரி சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா வர முடியும்னு நீங்க ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் யூ ஹேவ் டு திங்க் அபவுட் இட். Fourth one is self-discipline. As he said, வேற இன்னொருத்தர் நம்மள்ட்ட நீங்க இதை பண்ணுங்க அதை பண்ணுங்கன்னு சொல்றதுக்கு பதிலா நம்மளே நமக்கான செல்ஃப் டிசிப்ளின் வச்சுக்கிறது. அண்ட் தென் லாஸ்ட் திங் இஸ் ஹியூமிலிட்டி. இவர்கிட்ட நீங்க பேசுறப்ப யூ சடன்லி டோன்ட் ஃபீல் ஓவர்வெல்ம்ட் அபவுட் ஹீஸ் அ வேர்ல்ட் சாம்பியன் அத்லீட், பட் எந்த அளவுக்கு ஒரு ஹம்பிள்னஸோட நம்மள்ட்ட பேசுறாரு அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, தட் இஸ் சம்திங் எவ்ரி ஒன் ஆஃப் அஸ், irrespective of whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher, whomever you are, and the humbleness is something we all have to take away from Mr. Kutraleeshwaran sir's life. Sir, you are an inspiration for all of us, all the students and the adults, all of us together. Thank you so much. We wish you continued success in every single endeavor that you pursue, sir. So thank you. Final words of encouragement you would like to share for the students, sir?
Absolutely. Words of encouragement, I'm sure like students these days, they're all self-encouraged. I mean, one of my niece, she's in 12th standard too. So அவங்கலாம் படிக்கிறதெல்லாம் பார்த்தா அந்த காலத்துல நம்மலாம் ஒன்றும் பண்ணாத மாதிரி தான் நமக்கு ஒரு ஃபீலிங் வருது. பிகாஸ் நான் சொன்ன கிட்ஸ் தீஸ் டேஸ், உங்களுக்குலாம் எஸ்பெஷலி ஆல் த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ், there are so many avenues நாங்கெல்லாம் இருக்கும்போது it was, as I told you, engineering or doctor or lawyer or very very select field இருந்தது. இப்போ வந்து that's like just immense kind of potential, immense kind of like verticals in which you can like go. உங்களுக்கு எதுல interest இருக்கோ you can just like go in there, because the world of internet and world of technology has opened up so many doors for kids. Sometimes I feel like kind of jealous looking at kids these days, because the kind of opportunities they have, we didn't have that. So I would strongly encourage all of you to kind of like explore all opportunities, and don't take life too super seriously. Exam or material exam la kami mark nanu parvalla, jaasti mark nanu parvalla. If you look at the most successful people in life, they even dropped out of college and so on and so forth. Adukku na I'm not telling you don't study, or ingella teachers irukanga, they'll feel upset with me. I didn't mean that. What I mean is like, go after like genuine happiness. உங்களுக்கு எது happiness தருதோ, go after it, and define what success means to you. சில பேருக்கு success will be like, the best of the job. சில பேருக்கு success will be making the most money, and சில பேருக்கு success will be something else. But define what it is for you and go towards that. And I would say success is actually a culmination or the combination of various factors, right? Being healthy and being wealthy and being kind of happy. All these three should kind of like go hand in hand. So lifelong, you'll face like so many kind of exciting opportunities and challenges. Go after it, enjoy பண்ணுங்க, and always remember to enjoy life, right? And that's what I would definitely like to tell all the kids today. And even the parents are super kind of like charged up. Like even the parents have so much of exposure than what my parents did, or any of our generation parents at that particular point. So that's also a very nice kind of an ecosystem which is building automatically. And the IQ of these students these days, now sometimes I talk to 5-6-year-old people, அவங்க பேசலாம் பார்த்தா I have a normal conversation with them. So I kind of like really am amazed with the kind of exposure kids these days have. I was like, in fact, like I was blown away with some of the conversations I've had with very very little, young super young people. So that's what I said, I'm jealous of the generation today because of all the things that you have in your disposal. And another thing which I want to kind of like also kind of let all of you know is like, one of my passion is always going to be sports, right? And I've always wanted to do something back for sports, because I have been one of the victims of where I could have done sports but I didn't get sponsorship, so I didn't do it. So actually my passion has always been to start something like a sports foundation in India, which can help the budding sports people or help people with sponsorships or sport talent and nurture them and so on and so forth. So that is something in the works. And one of the, in fact, my current organization I'm working with, the Nanban organization, they are very interested in this. And very soon, Nanban and I, we're going to be starting a sports foundation in India. And the talks are on, and I'm currently exploring how we can do it so we can impact the society at large and give more opportunities for people in India and sport talent. And it's more about giving back and helping the community at large. So that is something I'm excited about. So that is something I'm also looking forward to. But again, everything in very, very early stages, but I'm very excited about that particular aspect. So the takeaway here is like, even for the kids today, which I was telling you back, giving back is extremely important for us. When I say giving back, helping people who are not as fortunate as you are. You don't have to be a millionaire or billionaire to kind of give. You can give your time, you can give your knowledge, you can give wealth, you can just like give your expertise, right? There are so many ways to give back. So that'll be great if all of you kind of cultivated right from the young age to help others and give back. The more you give, the more you receive in terms of joy, in terms of so many other things. So I would say strongly think about it, and wish you all fantastic luck and all the happiness and all the success in your life. And thank you again for this opportunity. It was a pleasure interacting with students, and some of the questions were like top notch, and thank you all. Yeah.